It is another edition of the On the Mic podcast. And like I just said, it's been 3 years since she's joined the show. It's been far too long. I would consider her more of a personal friend than a friend of the show because she would be on the show a lot more often. Either way, she is all over social media, all over the fight game, just everywhere you could possibly imagine, social media, UFC Fight Pass. And she makes her return to action at Gamebred Boxing 4 this weekend. She is Chicago's very own Pearl Gonzalez. Pearl, how are you?
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you. You're right. It's been 3 years. Holy shit.
Yeah, literally, I think the last time we talked, it was for a different project I was working on, and COVID was like just beginning.
You were in Jersey, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. And here I am back in Chicago, and you'll be back in Milwaukee. So there's so many things I want to talk to you about. And first and foremost, how did this? So Jorge Masvidal he's on Ariel Helwani, which he was on today as well. But he, a few weeks back or over a month ago, and he says, I got a big announcement. And then he breaks the news about Gamebred Boxing 4. Not only is it in Milwaukee, not only is it Anthony Pettis and Roy Jones Jr., but it is filled with MMA names and royalty, including yourself. How did this all come about?
Yeah, I think that my journey with boxing started about 2.5 years ago. I got injured and was unable to grapple. And at that time, I was actually actively pursuing a professional grappling career. I was waiting and ready for an MMA fight. And it was during the pandemic when everything was kind of shut down. And so I got injured. I was not ready needed surgery. I didn't want to have surgery. And I wanted to compete. And so bare knuckle boxing, BKFC, an opportunity presented itself there. And I jumped on it. And so I went and trained for that in preparation for my my debut in BKFC. I went to Brooklyn, New York to train with Amanda Serrano, one of boxing's greatest. Like, she's going down as one of the great. I mean, she's a couple shots or a couple of knockouts away from most knockouts of all time in women's history. But anyways, working with her, it was incredible. I spent a week with her and her coach, Jordan Maldonado. Absolutely incredible experience, something I had never experienced before, training with all the athletes and women I had trained with. It was just something very unique about being near her, around her, in her camp. I loved it. So 10 days, I come back home to San Diego, and within 10 days, I decided to pack up all of my shit and move to Brooklyn. And 10 days later, I had my stuff on its way, and I was in Brooklyn and preparing for my debut in bare knuckle. And so I spent about a year to a year and a half in Brooklyn, New York, living there. Again, packed up my life, moved out there. I trained alongside her. It was amazing. Like, she's just the sweetest, most incredible human being I've ever met. And her coach is awesome. The training was incredible. So I had the opportunity to train alongside one of boxing's greats for a year. And that was where the dream or journey for professional boxing begun. I had my experience in bare knuckle. I had my 2 fights with them. It was great. It was a great opportunity. It was a blast. And then I had decided to move on from there. I actually had surgery on my knee, so I am able to grapple, and I still dabble in grappling. I moved back to San Diego. I did like a year, so to speak, a year and a half internship in Brooklyn. And then I went back to San Diego about 8 months ago and went back to my longtime MMA gym. And that was where my boxing journey began. I had my first debut in boxing for Gamebred. I've actually been a part of Gamebred Boxing since Gamebred 1. This is number 4. The first one I commentated and did the commentary on it. And then the number 2 and number 3, I competed. I made my debut on Gamebred Boxing 2 and had my second fight on Gamebred Boxing 3. And now this is my 3rd pro boxing fight. And so when it comes to this particular opportunity, it presented itself back in January. I didn't just take this fight for money. I didn't just take this fight because it was a cool opportunity. It is something that I have put my heart and my soul into for over a year now in boxing. And I've been quietly working, humbly working. The fights that I had with Gamebred Boxing 1 and 2, they were small cards and there was no coverage on them. And, I've just been working. And every single day on my boxing skills, and I want to make a run at a title in boxing. And so that's kind of how this presented itself. When Gina Mazzani came up, it was a no-brainer. It was absolutely what I wanted to do, was compete in boxing. And a big name like her, I love the opportunity to test my skills against a girl that's fought at a high level for the UFC and for MMA for a long time. And let's see whose boxing skills are better. Let's see who hits harder.
So I have a lot to unpack there. So I have plenty of questions for you. I hope that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
I'm again, so much to unpack there. But first and foremost, I'll ask the easiest question because I don't know. Are we putting MMA behind us?
No. I still grapple. I'm still young. I have been very fortunate to live a good life. I don't party. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I've taken great care of my body. I've always had an amazing diet, and I'm in good shape. I'm in great shape, especially for my age, and I still grapple. There's some big opportunities that are on the horizon, and I can't talk about them today, but they will be out soon, I'm sure, and we'll see where this goes. I'm not putting MMA behind me, though.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that's out of the way. And I thought we were friends, but I don't get the grappling news. It's okay. I'll wait for it.
I can't wait till I can't officially announce anything yet, and so I've got to wait for the go ahead and the permission, or I would. But yes, I've been focused solely on boxing for the last couple of years, but like, I've been a grappler my entire career. I've been in MMA and mixed martial arts for 16, 17 years now. And I've been a predominant grappler. I have 2 brown belts from 2 different schools, 10th Planet being the last one. And I was really competitive in 2020 as a professional grappler. I was pursuing my professional grappling career. And then I had to make this turn, just pivot. That's kind of my life, and how it is when something arises or presents itself like a challenge or an obstacle, you just pivot and you find your way. And I feel like that's kind of what I've done in mixed martial arts, is I pivot and I look for the next great opportunity.
Literally, like what every hustler in life, in the combat sports world, like should be doing, is what Pearl Gonzalez is doing. Every time I see your name across social media or at an event, like I just love it. I would go as far as to say, and it's not a comparison, but if there's anyone who would be the next version of a Laura Sanko while also actively competing, I mean, you're great on commentary, you're boxing, you're grappling, you're all over social media, you're breaking down fights, you're doing so much. Like, it's seriously such a joy to see. It is such a joy to see, because some would look at their time and a departure from the UFC, and they would let that kind of crumble them, and they would just kind of go by the wayside, and we wouldn't hear from them. Now they would stay active and they would stay training, but you have taken the Pearl Gonzalez brand to a whole new level. And I think that might be the best compliment I can give you. Instead of letting Pearl Gonzalez be a UFC fighter or a former UFC fighter, you've just made Pearl Gonzalez your brand, and the UFC is just part of your brand. So it's part of your story. And I think that's wonderful. I think male fighters don't do that enough. Female fighters don't do that enough. They want to be defined by the promotion they're fighting in. Now, you've talked about your time with Gamebred Boxing, and I will ask you about the card a little bit. But when you look at like Jorge Masvidal, and huge star, obviously someone who knows all about his self-brand, what has it been like working with Gamebred Boxing, and what do you think he brings to the sport of boxing? Because I'm going to ask you about him in a few minutes. This isn't Jake Paul getting into the boxing world, right? Like, this is a man who has fought backyard fights, has been at the mountaintop of UFC stardom, and he sees something not only in the combat sports world, but in MMA fighters that can move into the boxing world and thrive. And this card shows that. And I think you're a perfect example of that. Not just a one-trick pony, but all these fighters on this card can do everything. What has your time with Gamebred Boxing been like, and what do you think George brings from MMA to boxing?
I think that Jorge is so unique because, one, he's one of the only promoters that speaks Spanish, that is Hispanic. It's a UFC superstar. one of the top fighters in the world. Yes, he comes from a very humble beginning. And, you know, I've always been inspired by his story prior to meeting him, prior to working with him, because he's from the hood. Like myself, I'm from the hood, you know, and I didn't get paid to fight, but I fought all the time in the streets. It's just something that's in my blood. Like him, it's just something that's in your blood where you just love to fight. And you know, they don't have enough of that anymore. Now everybody's pulling guns out and getting wild, you know, like you just handle some shit with your hands, your fist. And he had that. He's always had that. He comes from that, and he never gave up, to the point that he's one of the UFC's biggest stars. It's such an inspiring story. He, not on top of that, you know, he's done a lot actively in his community with the political thing and you know, just politics, and just been a big spokesperson, not just for fighting, but for people like myself that come from the hood, that didn't have these great examples, that didn't have much, you know, to look forward to. And then you create opportunities. And so if there's anything reassuring, it's looking at Gamebred or looking at Masvidal and seeing I can become anything I want to. And for anybody in the hood, regardless of your past, you know, you can become whatever you choose to, is it with hard work and diligence. And so I think that part of him has always been inspiring. What is also great about Masvidal is he's also doing this with his matchmaker and president, Dean Toole. And Dean Toole is one of my closest friends. I also commentate for Jorge Masvidal's Icon show as well.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're all tied together. We're a big team, and Dean Toole and his team, Dean Toole Promotions, they understand how to run shows. The show runs so smoothly. They take such great care of the athletes. They take great care of me as an employee. Obviously, I've now been with them as an athlete, and they take care of me as an athlete. And this promotions are just run so smooth. So any opportunity that I have with them to compete for them, I will absolutely do. And, you know, on top of that, with Masvidal being this inspiration, like, fuck yeah, I'd love to be a face for that, or, you know, be another, just a spokesperson for him and his new journey as a promoter. And as they continue to rise, man, I like to call this fight, Gamebred Boxing, this number 4, like when MMA meets boxing. It's the first of its own kind. Very rare do you get the opportunity to have these legends. There's so many MMA legends that are on this card, but they're boxing. And so for someone like myself who's been in the game for a long time, it gives me another opportunity. It gives Gina Mazzani an opportunity to I guarantee she's making more money on this boxing fight than she is fighting for any other organization other than the UFC and MMA. And, you know, it gives us fighters this unique opportunity, one, to get paid a good paycheck, but also a new platform, a boxing platform, a new sport, a new opportunity in some things, you know, and it's exciting. And I'm honored and grateful to be a part of this. I really am.
I think one thing, and I'm going to get your thoughts on what you said about MMA meets boxing here. I think one thing I love more about this event and about this card specifically, and a big props to Dean Toole, who I'm a big fan of, is there's also young boxers that the boxing world needs to get introduced to. And what better way than to have a card, like I said earlier, filled with MMA stars. And then you started off with some young boxers who deserve the spotlight, who deserve the attention, who deserve the chatter. Look, as of Monday, today's Monday, March 27th, I'm not going. But if there was a ticket in town that I would be going to see any event this year, this would be it. Because you mentioned it earlier, MMA meets boxing. Why is that so special? Why is this so special for this event?
I think it's special because, one, you get the MMA culture, I guess you can call it, is unique. It's not like boxing. It's very unique. It's MMA still in its infant stage or in its baby phase, so it's still fairly new. But the culture itself is so exciting, you know, especially because we were the only sport. Mixed martial arts was the only sport during the pandemic. So like, it's just exciting. There's so many new and unique people that are the platform. And so when you are able to get the platform from these, you know, from this culture, from the MMA culture, to tune into boxing, which boxing is huge, don't get me wrong, but it's just, you know, it's been around a lot longer. It doesn't have that new flavor. It's like some new flavor, some new salt and pepper on top, new seasoning, like MMA has. And you get to mash those two, I think is so unique. It's a beautiful opportunity for MMA athletes to now tune into boxing and kind of learn about the boxing world and learn about the sport and watch it. And then you take athletes who are MMA fighters, and MMA fighters compared to boxers, they're very different athletes. Yes, they're both combat sports, but it's a very different type of sport. And so we get to see the transition and to watch them be challenged in this way where they're not MMA athletes. They're coming in as boxers, professional boxers. And I think that's going to be really cool to watch them, especially someone like a Jose Aldo, right? Jeremy Stevens has always had these big, huge hands and knockout power. So I feel like he is going to naturally, he's going to take to boxing, right? But someone like Jose Aldo, who is one of the greatest strikers our sport, mixed martial arts, has ever known, was so heavy on the leg kicks and so heavy on kicking that, yes, I believe the last few years at the end of his MMA career, his boxing was improving tremendously. You could tell he had been working on it. But now this is a completely different challenge. There's different ranges in MMA. There's, you know, you have your range where you can't touch each other, which is very far out. Then you have your kicking range. Then you have your punching range, which is also like your elbowing and your grappling range. And so for me as a mixed martial artist to make my transition into boxing, that has been the most challenging part, is figuring out the ranges. And so I think that that's going to be really cool to watch on Saturday night, to watch these athletes figure out their boxing range without grappling and elbowing and figure this all out and challenge themselves in that way. And on top of that, you do have these young boxers who are coming up, and man, I mean, boxing it's so simple, but you know, there's a quote that the more simple, the harder, the more complicated it becomes. And that truly is true. Yes, there's like 4 punches or 6 punches. Holy shit, to really own those, to own and master those, that technique, that range, that movement, the footwork, it takes a lifetime. And when you see these young athletes who've been training their entire life in just one sport, man, they are real master. It's a masterclass. It's beautiful to watch. So I think it's exciting because you're going to get a mixture of these young athletes who have been doing this their entire life, who are going to have this beautiful boxing art. And then you're going to see monsters like Jeremy Stevens, Vitor Belfort, Jacare Souza, who are going to step into a ring for the first time in their professional career and box, which is going to be very unique and exciting. And not to mention our main event, who is one of the boxing goats, Roy Jones Jr., who's competing against one of MMA's goats, and Anthony Pettis, who's a karate guy, a taekwondo guy, a kicker, right? He likes that longer striking range, have to step into and make his debut against a legend. So it's interesting. It's so unique. It's something that you would never have imagined as an MMA fan to kind of witness. And it for that reason, it makes this so exciting.
All right, guys, interview over. Pearl just sold the card. If you're not going to watch it, if you're not going to go to Milwaukee, Wisconsin this Saturday, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Like I said, if there was a possibility for me, I'd be the first one in the door. Let's talk about your opponent. I do have a couple other outside of this event questions for you, but let's talk about Gina Mazany. You mentioned how this fight is likely taking very well care of her, but she's also a name. This is, as much as the event is good for all fighters, this is a good fight for you. I believe inside the ring, this is a good fight for her in and outside of the ring. I think it's a hell of a matchup. What do you make of Gina Mazany in this fight?
I love it. You know, I love this opportunity. This is a real fight that's in front of me. She's a real fighter. You know, she's been in the UFC. She's had multiple fights on on the biggest platform in combat sports, which is the UFC. She's had some wars. She's been challenged. She's faced adversity. She's overcome. She's really tough, and she's experienced. And I think that makes for a very dangerous fighter when you've seen it all. You know that you can get through some things. You've experienced some hardships in your career. You learn from those lessons. Those are valuable lessons. And so she's also stronger. She fought a lot of her career at 135 pounds. So I believe she's going to come in the bigger fighter, the stronger fighter. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to showcase my boxing skills. Like I said, I've been working very quietly on my boxing. I've been in the gym. Aside from media, you haven't seen much of me, and I've just been working. I've just been owning these skills and learning them and really trying to figure out the sport of boxing. And so I'm excited to test my skills. And although she's the stronger opponent, I know that I hit harder. And she's been in wars, and so I want to stand toe to toe with her. I want to get in her face, and I want to trade, and I want to find out who hits harder and who's going to be the last one standing. And that's my mentality in this fight: is I'm coming forward. I'm not going backwards. I'm not running. This isn't a marathon. I'm not going to use my footwork. I'm bringing the fight right to the middle of the ring or wherever it needs to take place, and I want to go toe to toe and find out who hits harder.
All right, I'm ready to run through a wall. When I said it's been 3 years since we talked, that's on me because you fought in the past 3 years. So I take full accountability for us not talking. So if since 2020, because you talking about this fight, I mean, you could sell ice to an Eskimo, honestly, Pearl. I'm super excited to see you in there. Now, going back to something you mentioned earlier, bare knuckle, is that something you would entertain in the future as well?
Yes. You're getting warmer. That's what I'll just say. That yes, you're getting a little warmer.
Listen, I'm not gonna pry. I was literally just asking. It's like I said earlier. There's so many times where I open up any social media app, and not only do I see you promoting yourself and your brand, but I see you working, and that's something that's so missed between all fighters. I'm talking young fighters and veteran fighters who are kind of like, I hate to use a Conor McGregor quote, but stuck in the mud. Not with their career, but with their brand. And they're always just, yeah, I'll watch that guy when he fights, or I'll watch that girl when she fights. And it's like, they're not doing enough. You're always doing something. So I'm going to go away from that. And I'm going to ask, when the hell, or can we ever get a Pearl Gonzalez documentary going?
You know, it's interesting. I've been working on some pieces. I have a videographer here with me this week who's really getting to get some of my roots. I'm here in Pilsen, which is where I'm from in Chicago. And they're getting a lot of footage. We've been working on footage. And for me right now, my biggest thing is to get my YouTube channel going. And I really want to, I love the sport. I love combat sports. And aside from doing commentary and analyst work, which is, I study it. There's nothing else I do. If I'm not fighting and training myself, I'm watching fights, I'm studying them, I'm studying the athletes, I'm studying the sport, and it's entertaining. I'm watching the entertainment side of this, aside from working on my own brand and my own things. But I'm not leaving this sport. The sport has saved my life. It's been a part of my life, most of my life. I'm not leaving it. And so there is the after. I have been focused on what's next after fighting, because there's a time clock on my fight career. And when it's all said and done, I'm going to move into the commentary world or the analyst world or my own TV show or whatever. Who knows what I get, my own show. And so those are kind of like my prime focus aside from fighting. But what was the question? Because I think I'm totally fucking lost here.
No. I think you're hitting it perfectly. I was asking if we're going to get a documentary because.
Oh, yeah, documentary. But the other thing that I think that makes my story unique and will continue to make my story unique is I am actively pursuing to compete in as many different combat sports professionally as I can, so that when it's all said and done, I have firsthand experience in all these sports, so that can carry over into my analyst work, into my commentary work, is to have that experience in various sports. And so, I've done combat jiu-jitsu, I've done bare knuckle boxing, I've competed for the UFC, for Invicta, done the regular MMA, I've done professional jiu-jitsu, now professional boxer. What's next? I want to check off as many of these combat sport boxes as I can, and use that to help tell the story of not only the athletes and the fighters, but to tell the fight story to the rest of the world.
I'm just going to say you might also need a podcast. You might want to, I'm just saying you might need a podcast. I think you do great analyst work. I think you do great commentary work. I think, when you do stuff with Icon and obviously back with Gamebred, I think you can break down fights. I think you can preview fights with the best of them. But I also think you know how to handle a real conversation. I think you would bring out the best in fighters, young and old, male, female. And I think I've earned enough of your respect to ask this question. When it's all done but you're continuing to go on, or even now as you continue to go on and you're here in boxing, you're here in jiu-jitsu, bare knuckle boxing, MMA, the door's not closed. As someone, as you've mentioned earlier, just like Jorge Masvidal, came from the hood, came from rough upbringings. Why is not only doing that good for you, but if I think I know Pearl like I know Pearl, you want to be someone that the younger generation, especially a younger generation of women, especially a younger generation of women from the hood or who may be struggling no matter where they live, can look at your story and go, yeah, that's what I want to do. Or yes, that's my inspiration. Or yes, I'm going to get off. And it may not be because they want to be a fighter, but maybe they just want to get off the streets, or maybe they just want to get off their ass and change their life. And why is it important for you to kind of dabble in everything to kind of showcase that to the younger generation?
You know, I think you hit it on the head earlier. I come from the hood, right? I come from nothing. I come from being poor, and you know, my family not having much, and fuck, you know, gang banging, and you know, just the drugs. The drugs have really tarnished my family, and it was hard, right? It was hard to grow up in that environment. It was hard to really have any idea of how to dream. And I was fortunate enough to have my aunt, who is very committed and dedicated to my fight career, who was just in the car a second ago making noise. But she left when she was 19 years old from the hood, the same environment, and moved to New York by herself and pursued her modeling career, and like, you know, made a whole life, and lived in New York for 12 years, and then moved to LA for 10 years, and, you know, did her acting and modeling, and came back home after 20 years and really mentored me, and like taught me that there was even a possibility to dream, right? Not necessarily that I could achieve everything. She just taught me the possibility of dreaming, of setting goals, of just trying, because I didn't have that. I didn't write down goals. I didn't have a focus board or a vision board. I didn't know I could travel the world. I didn't know. I was raising my sister at this time. I was 20 years old, raising my sister, getting her through high school, and working, and just trying to struggle to pay the bills. And through fighting, not only did it teach me perseverance, did it teach me failure, did it teach me how to set goals and go after them and strive for them and work towards them. It taught me, on the other flip side of that, it taught me health. It taught me how to take care of my body. It got me back to reading books. And through all of that, you know, I don't have anything past a high school education, but I've read so many books. I read so many books. I have really worked very hard to work on my character development, to work on my emotional intelligence, to work on my vocabulary, to work on my appearance, how I speak, how I present myself, how I carry myself, how I live my life, diet, nutrition, working out. You know, I've learned all of this, and it all started with fighting. And yes, I have. You said it earlier. You said that I'm always working, and I really am. When one door closes, it closes for a reason. Me being cut from the UFC was one of the most devastating things I've ever been through in my fight career. It did. I put so much of my self-worth and value on those 3 letters, on the UFC, and to be cut or to be fired ultimately from them, it was heartbreaking. And it was like, for a long time, my sole goal is, I got to get back to the UFC. I got to fight there. I got to get back there. I got to prove that I'm good enough to be there. And, you know, it just got to the point where it's like, maybe the UFC brand, me and the UFC brand aren't meant to be together, or maybe that those don't mesh, and that's okay. Because I'm still an athlete. I'm still an elite athlete. I'm still one of the most marketable women in combat sports, period.
In sports, period. But go on.
Thank you. And I'm an elite athlete. I know how hard I train. And so I've always just said, aside from my own self-doubt, aside from the labels that people and the boxes that people have tried to put me in, oh, she's pretty, she doesn't train harder, whatever it's been, I've always just put my nose down and worked hard, because that's all I know. When you come from what I come from, there are no handouts. There are no give me's, you know. You have to work for what you want in life, and I can apply this formula to anything. It doesn't have to be fighting. I can apply this exact formula to being I don't know, a scientist if I wanted to be. And it's through diligence, through hard work, through self-development, self-care, that you can achieve anything you want in your life. And so as a woman, you know, being difficult to take care of myself. I'm feminine, and I've been through heartbreak, and I was in a long relationship and married, and I sacrificed all of that for my career, for my dreams and my goals. And I'm, divorced now, and I don't date. I don't have a social life. I'm just focused on this. I'm focused on my goals and my dreams, because that is my number one value today, is accomplishments. And so when I'm not training in the gym and focusing on that part of my goals, I'm focused on reading. I'm focused on my diet and learning these, and cooking and learning nutrition. And, you just never stop working. And my image is a big deal to me. How I look, how I present myself. I love being beautiful. I am a woman through in and out. I am a beautiful, feminine, submissive, whatever you want to call it, woman. I love being a woman. I love everything about it. And so, yes, I'm a fighter, and yes, I've been a part of this sport, and I've been it's very masculine, and I've done this my whole life, but that's just a piece of me. I'm also a woman. I'm a woman, and then I'm a fighter. And so it's challenging. I can't say it's not been challenging. It hasn't been hard. I don't have self-doubt. I'm normal. I'm just like any other person. I just refuse to give up. And like, I have nieces who, we make focus boards, and I teach them and I talk to them in this way. And the number one quote that we've been working on for the last few months is, as long as I refuse to quit trying, I'll never fail. And that is the way I live my life, is I just keep trying. And if a door closes, I learn to pivot. I got to, try another door, try another way. Maybe there's another entrance, to get to the same goal. And that's kind of been my mentality with commentary and finding these other unique opportunities for myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful, and I'm not going to keep you much longer, and I appreciate you making all the time for me. You kind of stole my next question. I'm going to ask it anyway. Outside of just looking at kind of where you come from, where you're at, and why you do all the things that you do, you mentioned something else, and it's not that you're just a fighter, and it's not that you're just an athlete. It is that you're a woman. I would be stupid to not bring up the fact that too often in combat sports, more than any other sport, I mean, this is going to be weird, but I'm going to say it anyways. I watched women's college basketball yesterday to see one of the best women's college players on planet Earth, and she just lit it up on the court. But no one's talking about it because she's not going to be on the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Now, she may be in the future, but it's until, unfortunately, society sexualizes these women that they become the poster face of their sport. And I think that is so wrong, because I do think, and you would know better than I would, that often female combat sports athletes have this struggle of, do I focus more on being a woman and being who I am outside of the cage or the ring, or do I focus on strictly being a fighter, or where do I find that balance between the two? I think you do a great job of just being yourself and then also being a fighter. Why is that specific part of what you do good for women empowerment? Not just, hey, women fighters, you can also be proud of who you are outside of competition, but I think it's a message for all women.
I think that beautiful people, both men or women, if you look good, if you present yourself in a great way, you can become the face. I mean, look at Serena Williams, right? She's not a combat sports athlete. She's one of the greatest female athletes of all time. Will go down in history. And you look at these, and she's in tennis. It's a very different sport. Golf is a pretty big sport right now. And so I think that good looking people, that comes from within, that comes from inside. And for me, it's not so much I have to be pretty on top of being a fighter. I'm me. I've really just come to own who I am. I love being beautiful. I love wearing makeup. I love my eyelashes. I love my hair. I love wearing high heels. Like, that's a part of me. It always has been a part of me. And then I love fighting. I love going and beating the shit out of people and getting my ass beat, So like, it's for me, it's owning who you are. And when you own who you are, you wholeheartedly own who you are, that confidence comes out. And with that, the confidence is what sells. And so I think that basketball, there's the two twins, the pretty beautiful Miami girls
from the University of Miami. Yeah.
They're getting a lot of coverage right now. And I think that they are that unique, they are feminine. And it's like, I believe more than it being sexualized, it's the uniqueness in being both soft, feminine, and masculine. It's unique because not many people can do both. And so I think that when you own who you are and when you have that uniqueness to you, when you can be multiple faces or multiple areas of yourself and you show yourself, then you can shine, and not put yourself in a label, not put yourself in a box, not I have to do this, because when you have to do something, then it's not genuine. It has to be genuine. And when you're genuine, that's when the confidence comes through.
Well, you're helping me out without even knowing it, so I appreciate that. All right, a couple more, I promise. This is gonna throw you for a curveball, and then I'm gonna ask you, as I ask you this question, to give me 30 seconds after we wrap up this interview, because there's something I want to tell you off camera. But everything we've talked about brings me back to something you had a very small role in, but every year for the past 3 years, it has played a major role in my life. Around the end of summer, early fall, which I'll mention to you later. Would you like to see a show like Kingdom come back? Because I think it became what it was almost too early, because it's so good. It's so good about telling the true. Not everything is true. Not everything is true, right? Not every fighter has, drugs, killing their family and all of that. But these struggles of injuries, weight misses, all of everything, love, life, all of that. Would you like to see a show like that come back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, especially like for me right now, fight week, it's a lot of either work or I'm chilling, and I don't get the opportunity to watch movies very often. So this week I really do have to focus on just being real low key and preserving all my energy for fight night. But yeah, of course, I would love some good entertainment to watch.
I just think it's a hell of a show, and I think there's not enough shows that are reality drama type based around the sport. It doesn't have to be MMA, but I think it was one of the only to really bring it up. We get the movies, we all have the movies, but Frank Grillo, everybody, mainly Frank Grillo, just absolutely murdered it. I might know somebody who was on there. But outside of that, looking back and getting back to Gamebred Boxing for April 1st, this Saturday in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. By the way, happy it's in Milwaukee because it's not far.
I love it. As soon as when Dean told me he was doing it, I was so happy. I haven't competed or fought anywhere near my city in years, and even before I grew my name to where it is today. So it's a blessing. It really is that I get to perform in front of my family and get to put on a show for them, and they all get to come out, and they're spending the weekend in Milwaukee, and it's amazing. It really is when I can create this type of opportunity for my family to celebrate. Not often do we get that. So I love being able to fight near home. I really do.
Well, I can speak for I'll speak for the entire city of Chicago. Home misses you. And you mentioned, back when, being released from the UFC and how bad you wanted to get back. I'm happy that your story went this way. Because instead of being Pro Gonzalez from Chicago, a former UFC fighter, you're just Pro Gonzalez doing everything, making Chicago proud. Like, you didn't need those 3 letters to kind of solidify everything. I think, like I said earlier, too many people push that. So last one here, this fight, Gina Mazzani, I know how much the boxing career now means to you. I know that there might be other things in the works. Super excited to hear when those things can be announced. What are you looking to showcase and prove, and your message to the world in this fight?
That I got knockout power. And that that I can knock bitches out. I think that's more than the world to prove to myself. I know the power I have. I know the power I've been developing. And working on. I know the difference between the way that I hit and punch compared to other MMA female athletes and other women. And I just have a lot of power in me. I have a lot of passion in me. I have a lot of pain in me that I have turned into power. And I haven't had the wars. I've had a couple, but I haven't had the wars that I really want, where I can really pull through and showcase that and showcase my power. And so that is what I want to show on Saturday, is how much power and passion I have in me. And man, I'm here and I'm here to stay.
I'm super excited for you, Pro Gonzalez. 3 years is far too long. Let's not talk again in 2026. Let's make it a lot sooner. Thank you so much. Gamebred Boxing 4 goes down at the Visirum Forum at in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on April 1st, this Saturday. I believe there's still tickets. If there are, they are available on Ticketmaster. Make sure you get them. It is, as she said it best, MMA meets boxing, and as a card filled with legendary MMA names and boxing legendary, boxing royalty, Roy Jones Jr. in the main event taking on Anthony Pettis. Pearl, can't wait for this fight. Can't wait to see what else 2023 has in store for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike Pendleton, for having me on your show. I appreciate you.